Well, as the title suggests, it is all about big swings between warm and cool at this time of the year. Thanks for clicking on to Vogan's European Outlook for Thursday, the 20th of April. Before we get into the video, please like, share with your friends and family, and hit that subscribe button if you already haven't already done so. And yeah, these are the temperature anomalies for the last 5 days across Europe. You can see here central areas of the continent below average and warmer than average, particularly so across southwestern Iberia. Northern portions of the British Isles has been warmest compared to average, as well as Ireland, and near average further south and southeast across the British Isles. Month to date, this is the temperature profile in terms of the anomaly, and you can see here still a very, very cool April for the central swathe of the continent. Warmer than average across the north, cooler than average across the south. And with the cool air mass coming in now, starting to filter back in from the east, thanks to a very strong blocking area of high pressure to the north, that omega block remains persistent. But we are going to see changes as we progress through the next 24 to 48 hours. Um, I think the temperature profile will level off. This month looks as if it is going to wind up close to the average when all is said and done. So I think in terms of the temperature, it's been a pretty decent call. Precipitation wise, I'm not entirely sure. It has been drier over the last week as opposed to the first 10 to 15 days of the month, right enough. So I'm quite curious to see where the rainfall anomaly will be with regards to the UK for the month of April, because I did actually have a drier than average April with near average temperatures. So we'll wait and see what happens anyway. But you can see here, this is the current pressure chart as per the Meteoseal website. Of course, we continue to see underneath lighter winds, the warm afternoons versus the cold mornings. And that easterly wind has been very, very dominant through the course of this week so far, keeping things fairly fresh on the east coast. Warmer the further west, and particularly the further north you go across the board here. But you can see here a fair squeeze in the isobars, the strong area of high pressure centered to the north. Easterly winds crossing over those cold North Sea waters has kept things rather cool, like I say, and even that kind of har, kind of or fret, depending on whereabouts in the UK you are, has been fairly persistent as well. Interesting enough, this is the temperature profile for the UK as of recording, and notice here that it just isn't quite as warm in the western side of Scotland as opposed to what it has been the last couple of days. But we are still seeing, actually, we're still seeing 18 degrees at Alt Bay. We're seeing 17 at Oban as well, and of course, down the eastern side of the country, we've still got those single figures to around 10 degrees, 15, 16 degrees the further west you go. But cast your eyes to this here area now. Of course, if you live in this region, you'll know all about it, of course. But we are seeing the temperatures creep down to fairly low levels, actually, in parts of Norfolk and Suffolk. And the reason why is if you look at the rainfall radar chart here, you can see here that we've got this little band of rain now starting to edge its way through East Anglia and into the London area. And that is certainly pegging back the current temperatures you can see here. This is a sign of things to come, actually, because what we've got is we've got this little feature here riding that easterly flow. And what we're going to see is we're going to see the development of an area of low pressure that is going to bring a relatively unsettled period through the course of later this evening, through tomorrow, and into the first half of the upcoming weekend. So if we look at the ECM, the GFS, and you can see here what's going on. So we've got this fairly disturbed weather. We've also got some fairly chilly air associated with this little feature here. If you look at the 850 temperatures currently also, you've got this little pocket of fairly cold air at 850 riding the easterly flow, as you can see here, milder air trapped underneath that area of high pressure. The reason why the temperatures are pegged back a little bit more over Scotland is we've had a bit more pronounced east to southeasterly wind. That has been a little bit stronger, but more importantly, the reason why the temperatures haven't been as warm is because we're starting to cool the mid levels of the atmosphere, so hence why we're dropping the temperature. But if we go back to the overview chart, you can see here what happens as we play through the loop. You can see here this area of low pressure to the southwest of the British Isles. That is fairly trapped, stuck in place. Quite a deep little feature here. Yeah, I almost have this kind of little pinhole, little eye almost shown in the millibar pressure field here. It's quite an interesting little feature actually. But then, of course, we've got this, the very, very strong area of high pressure to the north versus low pressure to the south. If we look at the mean sea level pressure anomaly chart here, it really shows the picture quite nicely. So you can see the dominance of the block to the north, and of course low pressure trapped underneath that. And of course, with this area of high pressure so strong, this feature has got nowhere to go. So the pressure kind of almost deepens. Actually, it lowers within the center because it's kind of stuck in place. So the air is kind of just piling up in place, forces the pressure to drop within the center of low pressure. But it's very important paying attention to this feature here. And then, as you can see here, as we play through the loop, you see a little bit of a development. We've got this occluded frontal system here that is kind of on the north side of the Midlands, generally between North Wales and the Humber estuary. And what's got is we could have a spell during the overnight period of fairly heavy persistent rainfall underneath this little this frontal feature here. Further north, under clear skies, relatively light winds, we're going to see another chilly night indeed. If we look at the continue through the pattern here, you can see that that cloud deck expands, and we've got the kind of outbreaks of rain underneath that kind of leaden sky across England and Wales. And if we look at the temperature anomaly chart here, you can see that it's quite reflective with subdued temperatures to this across the majority of England and Wales, as you can see here, particularly so stretching from London through Bristol, Cardiff, up into mid Wales. You can see here an area of 4 Celsius below average, which is quite interesting. Meanwhile, we've got on the western side of Scotland here, we still have a pocket of warm air. The reason why is because we're going to start to see northerly winds coming in. We'll look at that in just a second. But with shelter from that wind, we are seeing this kind of sun trap, if you will, over the west central highlands. That's going to allow places such as Garth, for example, potentially to reach about 18 Celsius. That may be the case even on Saturday as well. But we've got quite the contrast between warm Scotland and cool England and Wales, southern Ireland as well. Very warm across central and northern Iberia, as you can see here. Back to the overview chart, you can see here that as we play through the course of tomorrow, a fairly kind of damp, dreary kind of day across much of England and Wales, and extending and expanding across Northern Ireland here, as you can see. Then you notice here that the frontal system actually kind of edges into the southern portions of Scotland, staying dry further north, but also brightening up across England and Wales, later in the day tomorrow and through potentially the first half of Sunday here. But it's what's actually slightly different to what I expected. The actual area of low pressure isn't developing so much along this frontal boundary, but we've actually got, with this northward progression of the front, we've got lower heights across England and Wales, and therefore it's allowing this feature to then lift north, because what essentially we're doing is we're weakening the block to the north and opening the door to features moving up from the south. And that's exactly what we're going to start to see taking place. But this is going to be critical. So as you can see here, this area of low pressure moves up through the Dover Straits between East Anglia and the Netherlands and Belgium. As you can see here, could have a spell of fairly heavy persistent rainfall through the southeast of England, East Anglia, up into Lincolnshire, for example. Elsewhere, quite a showery theme, all the way up to Inverness and the Moray Coast, as you can see here. This is during Saturday afternoon. And let's have a look at the 2-meter temperature anomalies for the same period. You notice here the temperatures have come down a wee bit, still staying marginally above average across the north, staying cooler than average across the bulk of Ireland, England and Wales, if you notice here. And then back to the overview chart, you can see here that it's a fairly unsettled pattern, and it's somewhat different now to what we've seen back during the last week or so, with high pressure east to southeasterly winds. Remember, we started off the week with a southwesterly wind that allowed the temperature to rise to above 21 Celsius for the first time this year in Kinlochnu in the Northwest Highlands. But as we continue to play through the weekend and into next week in particular, what we're going to start to see, that area of high pressure that's been so dominant to the north over Scandinavia and Iceland, that high is going to then become focused over Greenland and the North Atlantic, with an area of low pressure spinning around fairly unsettled conditions. Cool air aloft means incoming solar radiation. We're increasing what you call the lapse rate, that upward motion, and of course that allows the atmosphere to become quite unstable. We see showers developing, hail, gusty winds, possible thunder and lightning with this kind of scenario as well. But it's all eyes on those northerly winds now starting to become a little bit more pronounced across the northern half of the British Isles. And if you notice here that as that area of low pressure spins away to the east of the UK, those winds are increasing. Notice the squeeze in the isobars indicate that that northeasterly wind becomes more stronger, and it is ingesting colder air on the western flank of this area of low pressure. What that's going to do is we're increasing the chance of rainfall changing over to snowfall, and the freeze level is going to drop through the second half of this weekend. And you can see here that as we continue to play through the loop, if we look at the 850 temperatures here, you see what's taking place. Relatively mild across the bulk of England, Wales and Ireland, but notice here that northern half of Scotland is starting to see colder air coming down, and that basically opens the door to colder air. Now, during the course of Monday, most places across Scotland will struggle to hit 10 Celsius. Places such as Aviemore, Loch Liscarnock, Altnahara, Braemar, for example, may struggle to get much out of the 5, 6, 7 Celsius range. Factor in the wind, could be talking about sub-freezing wind chills. What a difference a week makes here in the UK during the month of April, depending on the pattern. So as we play through the second half of Sunday, you can see that here that area of low pressure starts to drift a little bit further east, and now comes the northerly winds. Now, they're not the same type of northerly winds that was seen, of course, back a couple of months ago, but what we are going to see is the freeze level go down to about maybe 200 metres. So higher parts of Scotland, for example, even the road routes A9, A96, the A82, the highest parts of those roads could see a wintry period of weather as we progress Sunday into Monday, possibly even into Tuesday with those snow showers coming down. You look at the 850 temperatures here, and we're seeing the cold air come right the way down the spine of the British Isles and indeed Ireland. And as I've said already, we could see a day where the temperatures struggle to get much above 10 Celsius from the north coast to the south coast of the UK. Factor in the wind, it feels even colder than that here, but it's a very transient shot of cold air, because if you notice here, we have got some fairly warm air trying to lift up through Iberia, and our good friend Gavin Partridge touched on this yesterday in his videos. If you haven't already done so, check out Gavin Partridge on YouTube and check out his terrific content, because it is really second to none, and I encourage you to give him a subscription if you haven't already done so. He looks at this, he's already made mention about how incredible the warmth is coming north here. So as we progress from the start of the week, feeling chilly, ice risk, temperatures well below freezing, especially away from towns and cities, during the first half of next week, we could see a very different story into next week. And next weekend, we could see temperatures rising further than what we've seen so far this year. And of course, it hasn't been anything really to write home about. 21 Celsius during the month of April could in fact be the warmest temperature of the whole month. And actually, that's pretty below par, actually, for this stage in the year for the British Isles here. So, yeah, there's a lot of things to look at. Of course, coming up this upcoming weekend, global weather and climate report. Stay tuned for that. There's lots more to come, so I do appreciate you watching. Enjoy the rest of your day. Enjoy your evening. I'll see you again hopefully tomorrow with more. Bye for now.